What's going on, everybody? Thank you for taking the time out to watch this video. Today we got our lovely guest in the house. Her name's Susan at Bitcoin Country. Tell us a little about yourself and your background in cryptos.
Well, I watched coworkers go through the financial downturn of 2008. They lost a lot of money in their 401k programs, and I decided when I got close to retirement, I was going to do something to try to protect myself. And so in 2017, I started basically self-educating myself on economics and finance and markets. To start that process of learning how to protect my wealth. And I ran into cryptos. And so, people talk in the financial world, they talk about, the stock market and bonds, but there's other ones talking about gold and silver. And some of the gold and silver people talk about cryptos also. And that's how I got into it. And so that introduced me to this technology that's revolutionizing the way we live and has and is introducing us into what is now called Web 3.0.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that information, Susan. So today our topic is inflation and how Bitcoin is the lifeboat, how Bitcoin can save you from that. So I'm going to pull up a couple articles about inflation and we'll go from there. Save some time and dive right into it. So the first article is out of CNBC. Inflation rose 8.6% in May, highest since 1981. The next article is out of Zero Hedge. Inflation storm devastates U.S. households as fuel, power, and food become unaffordable. So you guys out there, guys and gals out there watching this video, make sure you're prepping now for what could be a doomsday event. You never know when it's going to come. Even if you buy a little bit extra of what you think you're going to need now, you'll have it for later, even if doomsday doesn't come. So it's just better to be prepared and not scared.
The big thing to get out of these articles, and if you could go back to the previous one, Derwin.
Sure.
Inflation is not transitory, as Janet Yellen and the Fed Chairman Jay Powell told us. It's here to stay. And inflation is going to continue to rise. So don't just sit back on your haunches and wait for things to get better. You need to realize we're in a transition here. Inflation is going to keep going. I've been hearing gas $8 to $10 a gallon by the end of the summer, depending on where you live, as high as, and I've even heard some extreme predictions of $15 a gallon by the end of the year. So realize this is different. The inflation's not going to stop. And that's why we're talking about inflation and Bitcoin today.
Absolutely. And then, so the next article talks about another thing that has to do with what happens in these times that we're living in is first-time jobless filings jump to third highest total of 2022. And it's basically just an article talking about how there's a big hiring phase going on all across the globe, basically. Mainly we're talking about the United States, but across the globe it's happening. People cannot find people to fill positions. For some reason, we're just having massive people that don't want to work. What do you think about the topic, Susan?
Well, there's probably some of that too, but and we'll talk about this later too, but the labor force, there just aren't enough people to work. Why? There's two primary reasons that I can see, other than what you've mentioned. Maybe people don't want to work, but the baby boomers are retiring.
That's true. There's only so many Walmarts that they can work at.
And then the other thing is the birth rate is down. So you've got a lot of people retiring and no new people, and not as many new people coming in.
Yep. And also with all this AI technology and these robots, that takes a lot of jobs as well.
Yep.
And then, so the next article to stay on topic is basically an article from Target. So it says the demand for random crap suddenly vanished, taking everyone by surprise. And what it means by that is, people are not spending money on TVs, on just useless items anymore like they were before inflation because they're too busy buying fuel, gasoline, food, things like that. So, um, right here it says, no one is shocked that when it goes up, or that what goes up must go down. What's shocking us all is how quickly the situation changed. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you consider the price of fuel essentially tripled, that sucked up a lot of excess cash. Well, not that people have excess cash, but the excess cash they were using to buy things that, let's just say, their wants: a new purse, a pair of shoes, a new TV. When gas prices doubled and food prices have started to rise, it leaves people with no extra cash to buy those incidentals, and so they go from they just don't have any extra money to buy things they want, and they've got to stick to just filling up the cart with groceries.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Things are getting rough out there for everyone, and it's only going to get worse. But there's an upside to this, and we'll talk about that a little later. So the next one's out of Zero Hedge as well, and it says market panics after J.P. Morgan predicts CPI will come hotter than expected, and the White House confirms. So just talks a little bit about the CPI and what's going on with it. And that brings us to the next article where I think Susan would like to share this one.
And you know what they say about by the time it gets on mainstream, it's already too late. The insiders have known for a long time. The reason we included this slide is I just wanted people to be aware of, regarding the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, that was announced today, of 8.6%. The inflation rate is calculated different than it was years ago. This is regarding the Bosky Commission, which was basically done in the 90s. Says it started in 1995, and they claimed they were looking to make a more accurate measure of the cost of living. And so they changed the formulation for how they calculate inflation. So when you see news people talking about inflation being comparable to in the 80s, or even the 70s, comparing rates, you can't compare them. They're just not the same formulation. The core CPI right now that was announced today was 8.6%. And I've read a lot about people who calculate what a true reflection of that would be if we calculated the ratio like we used to. And they call it the real inflation rate. So the real inflation rate, instead of being 8.6%, which is what is reported, if it was calculated the same way, they would be giving us a number of 24% inflation. That big number ought to blow your mind. It's the reason why, do you ever feel like something's wrong? You're seeing that inflation rate of 8.6%, and that's high inflation, but you have this feeling that like, and I've had this for quite a while, it's like it feels like a whole lot more than that. I mean, it just does. And there's a reason, because it is, compared to back in the 70s or the 80s, the inflation rate is actually higher than it was back then when we were at all-time high inflation. So it's a smoke and mirrors game the government has played with us for a very long time. They just basically, this Boston Commission was set up for political purposes to make things look better back then. And we will read the second paragraph. The report was important because inflation, as calculated by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is used to index the annual payment increases in Social Security and other retirement and compensation programs. Blow your mind? They did it so they didn't have to pay the people the higher cost of living raises in all of those programs. That's just awful.
Yep. Doesn't surprise me at all.
The more you know, you know?
Yep. And what's going on in the whole globe is definitely done by design. The federal banks, the institutions, they want to be the lender, the borrower and lender of last resort, and they're basically wiping out all of the middle class. So you have a bunch of haves and have-nots, and it's really sad.
This inflation is going to destroy people's wealth, and that's the big reason I'm into crypto and Bitcoin in particular. I've got to find a way to preserve my wealth. They are, Bitcoin is here to stay. It's been around since 2009. It's not going away. We have many other blockchain technologies being implemented. It's not going away. And so you've got this duality. They're trying to switch us from the old currency system, US fiat, which we're currently in, to a new currency system without us realizing it. So there's two paths. There's the central bank digital currencies, and those will take away a lot of our freedoms. And just to give you an example, I'll give you an example of how they have it set up in China, this is a path that the United States is going to go down with their central bank digital currency that's supposed to come out when? I don't know if it's next year or the following year, but the money will be programmable. And so your wallet, for example, like if you were in China and you jaywalked, okay, your phone tracks you everywhere. If that's an unacceptable behavior, they have the ability then to shut your wallet off. If you said something considered politically incorrect, banned speech of some sort, they could shut your wallet off. What does that mean? Well, when you go to the grocery store, your app just wouldn't work. Your bank account with your central bank digital currency in it would not work, and it would say, sorry, something like, sorry, your account is frozen for another week. Please try again later.
Yep, and if you're a little overweight, they'll probably tell you can't buy a Snickers bar, something like that.
That's another thing that's been proposed. Because it's such a big control system, they can program anything they want into it. That's terrible. Another thing they can do is they can put an expiration date on your money. If they want the currency to move faster to keep the economy going, they can put an expiration date on your money. Well, how would that work? Well, you would open your account and you might see that you have 60 days to use X number of dollars, or you're going to lose something. And it might be, here's your balance, and in 60 days you have to use X number of dollars, or you're going to lose 10% of your account. I mean, it's so crazy that it sounds hard to believe, but I mean, this has been admitted. It's being talked about now by central bankers and different press releases and stuff, that not really press releases, but different times I've seen them talking, different ones from the central banking system talking about it. I've watched lectures on it, and they talk about the ways they could, make life better for us and keep the economy rolling. It's always sugar coated with, we're looking out for you. We're here, we're taking care of you. It's really I'm speechless. I mean, it's just so awful. I can't. I mean, it's hard to believe we're going down this path, but we are. But anyway, that leads me into this is why people like me are fleeing into cryptos
Yep, I totally
because
agree.
and what it boils down to, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies that are on blockchains, um, you basically you have to have the Bitcoin in your wallet before you can spend it. There's no float like you have with your checking account now. So if you don't have the money, you can't spend it. Um, and the blockchain, like Bitcoin, it's based on truth. It's math. 1 + 1 = 2, 2 + 3 = 5, and so you that's the only criteria is you have to have it before you can spend it.
Yep.
So to compare the two systems, central banks are trying to centralize even more our money, our currency. Okay. And whereas with crypto, we're going the decentralized route, which is less control over our money. And just to give you an example, this wouldn't apply to a lot of people, but this is something I tried to do a year and a half ago. I needed to wire money to someone out of the country, and I was unable to do it after 3 attempts with 3 different banks. My bank told me I couldn't do it, and they were just trying to protect me. Well, I was trying to buy a service. I was trying to pay for a service in Australia. And I was so disgusted, I had to go a different route. But that was an eye-opening experience for me because it taught me a lesson. They really are controlling our money. And I even called my bank and explained, and they gave me the almost like the little soft pat on the hand. We're just trying to protect you. Well, I don't need protecting from myself. I'm perfectly capable of making my own decisions about my money.
Oh yeah. So when we sold our house, we tried to pull out a significant, like 20 grand, I think it was, or 10 or 20 grand. We tried to pull out of the bank, and they basically told us, no, we don't have it. You got to wait till, I think it was a week. So we went in on a Monday or Tuesday, and they said they'd have it by Friday. We were lucky. I mean, what kind of, that's our money, and we can't pull it out to use it as cash. I mean, that should tell you something right there.
That's
Uh,
called capital controls. And I've watched ever since Corona started, I've seen these capital controls being implemented and tightened down. Even in my own bank account, they lowered the limits of cash I can take out of my ATM, um, or even use my debit card to purchase. I mean, I did look into it further and I found out that I could call my bank and have that limit temporarily reset for one day for a higher amount. But the bottom line is they're tightening the exits. Okay. So as from a day-to-day basis, you can take less money out of your account at a time. And what you just described is is making me think of, that I would like to tell people is we think of that as our money because it is. The way the banking regulations are written and have been changed over the years, the fine print actually says that it's theirs once you give it to them. They're holding it for you, and therefore they make the rules. So if there is a bank bail-in, they may or may not give you your money.
yeah, and a lot of people think just because it says it's FDIC doesn't mean it's backed by anything.
My understanding is, and I get this from watching Lynette Zhang at ITM Trading. She really digs deep on looking into contracts and regulations and stuff of the fine print of all this stuff. And and she's how I learned about the regulations were changed after the 2008 market crash, where there was a bank bail-in, and the public was very infuriated. The taxpayers had to pay for the bank's mismanagement of their money. And so new laws were passed that could never happen again. Well, what they didn't tell us on TV was that the fine print is that the next time they have to do a bail-in where they hold on to their customers' money, and they have to bail in and freeze your money to get through a crisis before the federal government can ever step in and use taxpayer money to help a bank survive.
Yep.
That's not free market at all. And I don't want somebody controlling my money. So I have moved a lot of my cash out of the bank. I use my bank account now to pay bills, and I use my excess cash, and that's what I started my crypto accounts with.
Yep.
Now, I do want to jump in here and add that it's a process, and you have to educate yourself. It's the only way you're going to. We can't educate you, we can't educate you all at once. You have to take the personal responsibility to start watching, for example, YouTube videos and reading articles from Cointelegraph and what's the other couple other ones?
Daily Hodl.
What's Crypto Potato is another one.
Yep. Daily Hodl, Pro Coin News. There's a lot of them out there. And even if you go to coinmarketcap.com, they have news updates all the time now. Mind you, a lot of those platforms do have an agenda. So when you're reading these topics, you still need to do your own due diligence and do your own research. None of us are financial advisors. None of this conversation is for financial advice. But with that being said, I mean, you got to do something.
The other thing I find very helpful is, join a community, a blog. Open-Minded Bitcoin has a Telegram group where he posts pertinent articles and regarding cryptocurrencies and news items, and that's an excellent way to learn. But this is, if you want to protect your wealth, this is something you have to take the personal responsibility to start educating yourself on.
Yep.
Now, this chart is, I wanted to look at this because one of the common questions I get is someone will, in conversation that I've been talking to that's very skeptical of Bitcoin. Well, I see Bitcoin really took a dump today. Well, markets go up and down, just like the stock market, just like the bond market. There are daily fluctuations. But if you look at this chart, Bitcoin has been around since 2009. And this chart only goes back to 2012, but it's back far enough. Essentially, you can see for a long time, Bitcoin really didn't fluctuate, well, relatively a whole lot, as people were trying to even figure out what Bitcoin was. And then the real change came in 2017. But what this chart does show is that over the long term, Bitcoin is reaching higher highs. And so, this sage advice is buy low, sell high. So, and I don't know, can you see my pointer?
No. All right. Where do you want me to point?
Go up to 2021 where that big rise in Bitcoin is starting. Right there. Okay. You see that sharp, steep incline, the price just keeps going up and up and up.
Straight up,
a lot of people that aren't educated, they see this, going for whatever it is, days and weeks, that the price just keeps going higher and higher and higher, and they finally jump in, and that's called FOMOing in, FOMO, fear of missing out, and you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. Cooler heads prevailed, but I will say this, my suggestion is do what I did, dip your toe in, whatever that amount is, $100, $500, make your first purchase be a small amount. Now you've got skin in the game, and you're going to watch it and you're going to learn more. And so now where we're at now is, you can see Bitcoin has come down quite a bit this year, but that's okay.
Perfect time.
So even if the price of Bitcoin went down to $20,000, which I don't think is likely, like we said, this isn't financial advice. We're just kind of discussing and trying to educate you on what we've learned in the past 2+ years, 3-4 years that we've both been in it. I actually look for Bitcoin to move within a range sideways all summer, or at least most of the summer. So I don't think Bitcoin's going to go a whole lot higher from here. And then when it takes off again, it's probably going to go higher than it did last year.
Yep. And see, that's the thing. No one has a crystal ball. No one knows where it's going to go for sure, 100%. It could go down here, could go all the way up here to this range, but it doesn't matter. We know it's the future. We know it's not going anywhere. So when people ask me, when do you buy Bitcoin? Well, I buy it here, 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 here. Maybe I don't throw my whole savings account or my whole bag at it, but I dollar cost average into it as it's going up and as it's going down, because I know what it's going to do in the long run. And it's not a get rich quick scheme, not an overnight Ponzi scheme like a lot of people think it is. I have a buddy that goes, well, I can't buy a whole Bitcoin. I don't have the money to buy a whole Bitcoin. And plus, everything I read about it is it's a Ponzi scheme. So what happens when everybody sells their Bitcoin and you're stuck holding the Bitcoin? And it's like, that's very unlikely to happen, for one. For two, it's traded worldwide, globally. And for three, it's more solid than our fiat system that we have right now, because they can only mine so many of them. There will only be 21 million Bitcoin ever mined. So when you think of it as long term and building generational wealth for your family, you invest in it on the way up and down if you do it long term. I'm not really a trader, I'm a hodler. So I do take some profits, but I do that out of my other cryptos. I never touch the Bitcoin. I buy it and hold it. And that's a lot of things the whales will do, is they'll pump it up, get everybody excited, get all the retail investors in, and then they'll throw some FUD in the market, have you sell all your Bitcoin. Now they just bought all your Bitcoin from you at a much lower price because you got scared and jumped out. It happened to me in 2017 when the market crashed.
So I do dollar cost average in every week, but I also now have started, now that I've got a few years under my belt and I'm getting used to these swings in the market, because that is a big issue. The concern of losing a lot. That's a big concern for a new investor. And so like I said, I dollar cost average in every week, but now I have started accumulating some cash on the side, and I may pull the trigger even yet this month. And if I think that Bitcoin isn't going to go any lower, then I'll go in and buy, whatever it is, 500 to 1,000, 2,000, whatever. So you can basically do a combination too. This is different than the stock market. I've had people say, well, the stock market goes up and down too, and it can really crash. Yeah, the crypto market can really crash too, but this is very different in that this is a new technology.
Absolutely.
This is a new technology. It only goes back to 2009. And I encourage everyone to look up Michael Saylor interviews about Bitcoin on YouTube. He can explain how Bitcoin, the value proposition of Bitcoin, like nobody's business. He's the most articulate person I've watched on explaining that.
Yep. And then you got articles like this. It's Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong says Bitcoin may become new global reserve currency, and I don't see why he would be lying or why he would make that up. I mean, he does. He is the CEO of Coinbase, so I do see there's a reason for him saying it. But I see it happening from the adoption that I researched, from talking to people, from my clients that I work with. The adoption's there, and I really do see it in the future. And it may not happen tomorrow. It may not happen the next 10 years, but eventually it'll be there.
Right. El Salvador has already made it their, is it their reserve currency, or they make it legal tender?
They made it their legal tender.
And other countries are looking into it now. So as adoption spreads, so there's no reason to panic and rush into this. Educate yourself. You start at the starting point where you're at, and you just make it a habit. Instead of wasting time watching mindless programs on TV, educate yourself. Get in your, crypto education every day, and realizing that this new technology, the adoption phase, is going to be, over a period of years. I mean, we're long-term holding Bitcoin. We're talking, it may be 10 or 15 years before I sell any Bitcoin. And actually, there's reasons why I may never sell my Bitcoin.
Nope. The only thing I would do is borrow against my Bitcoin.
And that would be why I wouldn't sell.
Yep. Michael Saylor dives deep into that. Once you understand what he's talking about, corporations and businesses and all, it just makes sense to borrow against it.
It's as simple as this for tax advantages. If you sell your Bitcoin, you have a capital gain to report and pay taxes on. It's a taxable event. You're going to owe taxes.
Yep.
But if you take a loan against your Bitcoin, which is your asset, it's like taking out a home equity loan. When you take out a home equity loan, do you report that on your taxes? No, that's not taxable income. It's not income. You're taking a loan. In this case, your Bitcoin, you're borrowing from yourself. So there's no taxable event. This is huge.
Yep. Totally agree.
So anyway, that's a good overview of the inflation, how we believe it's going to continue to go on, and this is why we consider crypto and Bitcoin the lifeboat to help preserve wealth. It's a hedge, and as more and more crypto adoption occurs, you're going to see more and more people talking about it. You're going to see bigger funds going into it. As a matter of fact, bigger funds are looking into it now, but they don't have the means to directly buy like Bitcoin, because their corporate structures are set up that they have to buy into a fund. And right now there's no ETF for Bitcoin approved by the SEC. So it's keeping some big money out of cryptos. Now, once the SEC approves a Bitcoin ETF, you're going to see some of these big funds jumping into Bitcoin. And when that happens, the price can only go one way.
Yep. Yeah, nope, I totally agree. And there are whales out there buying it up now. So I suggest you, not financial advice, but look into getting some Bitcoin if you don't have it. If you need help getting Bitcoin, you can go down to the links in the description box. And I got links down there. One's for my website. You can go here, check it out, book an appointment now. It'll take you to this page. And then you can set up a 30-minute appointment or a 60-minute appointment. We could do it over Zoom, or you can do a phone call if you don't like Zoom, and then we can meet up somewhere, and I'll help you with your cryptos, getting in wallets, hot wallets, cold wallets, what they are, seed phrases, how to use them, security, safety, um, how to live off cryptos, anything to do with cryptos. If you need to learn more about blockchain, if you need to learn how to build a business like I did, if you want to help educate people running a consulting business like I did, I can help you with that. I believe Susan can too. She's getting her stuff up and running, even if I have to choke her and make her do it.
I'm working on it. I'm working on retiring from my day job first.
Yeah, that's what I did. I was a full-time electrician and retired from that. Got into cryptos. Where I ran three other businesses first. Then we got into cryptos, and now we're traveling. Well, if you guys follow my channel, you'll see. But for those of you who are new, this is how you get a hold of me. And another good way to get a hold of me is on Patreon. So if you don't have the money to afford one of those consultations, but you want to learn more, I have video after video after video, over 85 videos, 35 videos, 85 links, um, of all information and education on how to get into crypto safely. And then same thing, if you want to follow me on Twitter, links below. This is what my page looks like. And that's about it. So with that being said, do you have anything to add, Susan?
Just that if you want to follow me on Bitcoin Country on Twitter. And I also want to say that I had always envisioned retiring and not doing anything else, because isn't that what other than volunteer work or whatever, when I retired. And with the inflation raging out of control, I understand that I need to continue to work. So I'm working a part-time job, and that's giving me extra time to do crypto education and education for myself and get more deeply involved in crypto. So I do suggest that people, you find ways to get through this time period. The times are going to become even more difficult. And, I always figured a full-time job was enough, but if you are not at a point where you can retire, you may need to consider a side hustle very seriously. If that's your avenue to being able to invest in cryptos and give yourself a hedge against this terrible, terrible inflation that's happening, you've got to do something to protect your wealth. And open-minded Bitcoin can help you if you need help, like you said. I just wanted to say that I am having a fun time traveling this journey with open-minded Bitcoin and other people that I have met along the way. Did you mention your Telegram group?
No, but I do have links down in the description for Telegram, so you can find me.
That's a great way. That's a great way to follow open-minded Bitcoin as well and get a lot of information about crypto adoption. But on his Patreon, he does the how-to videos, which is real helpful.
Yeah, and I'll start ramping those back up again. I took a break for a little while. We were selling our house and moving and stuff, so I'll get all that stuff back running now that I'm settled down for the summer in a really lovely area. It's very nice out here.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. It was nice talking to you today.
Yeah, nice talking to you too. Thanks for coming on the show, and hopefully I'll get to come on your show as soon as you get it going again.
We'll get there eventually.
All right. Thank you, Susan. And thanks for everybody watching. Take the time out, smash the like, share the video, get it out there. If you don't like this content, someone else might like it. If you already know what we've talked about today, someone may not know it. So the more people that share it and get it out there will help reach the people that do like the content or that don't know it, that may need help in cryptos. That being said, you guys have a blessed day and take care.